Welcome to the Solution Point, our program where we discuss solutions for your life, your business, and the law. My normal co-host isn't here, and we'll miss her, Kat. Hopefully you'll see this later. Before we get started, I do want to ask you to go ahead and click the subscribe button and the like button if you like what we talk about today, and make sure you subscribe so we can get more people to get more solutions. All right. Well, today we have a good friend of mine as our guest, Tilden Moschetti. He is a real estate attorney, and he is the founder of Altitude Syndication Founders Club. And I'm going to let him kind of tell us a little bit more about what all that means for the civilians who don't have a real estate background. But it's a very interesting program, and I've been very impressed with Tilden's abilities in real estate and even estate planning. He's in another state, but I know this particular program that he's developed is available all over the country and probably all over the world. So with that, Tilden, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Well, tell us a little bit about this Altitude Syndication Founders Club. What does that do?
So let's start kind of back in the beginning. So I had been practicing law for about 10 years. I was a real estate lawyer, primarily doing litigation. I was practicing up in San Francisco, and I was doing well and doing a lot of business. And I kept seeing in every deal that I was doing, I would look and see at the closing statements, I would see how much brokers were getting paid. And I thought, boy, sure would be nice to be making that kind of money instead of just an hourly rate that I was charging. So I decided to move to Southern California, and I went into just doing commercial real estate brokerage for a period of time. And I did well, and I was getting a fair amount of deals and closing them. I've done quite a bit of business, but I found myself suddenly living deal to deal, and it got very, very frustrating that I didn't have a steady income. By that point, I had a wife, and I had one child at the time. I now have two, and I wanted to be able to provide for them, but I was living this deal to deal lifestyle. So finally, I had a deal that was going to be great. It was going to pay off my credit cards. Everything was going to be great. And then about 1 week before the transaction closed, now I was going to get paid a $300,000 commission. This was on a beautiful marina. It's an awesome property. I saw it and instantly wanted to sell it because it was so cool. So I was going to make $300,000. I had the guy who was going to do it. I'd worked with him before, knew it was going to happen. We planned pay off the credit cards, planned a trip for my wife and I. Everything was set. And a week before, my phone got a text message from the buyer saying, sorry, this deal just isn't going to work. I'm out. I was suddenly in a huge bind, and it was really bad. So I tried to figure out what I was going to do. I decided I was going to start doing law again, like practicing law again. And one of my friends and business partners at the time came up to me with another deal, and he showed it to me, and he said, look, this is a really good deal. Do you think we can syndicate this? And I kind of knew what real estate syndication was, but I'd never done it. It's not something most lawyers do. And but I needed money, so I said, sure, let's do it. So in a nutshell, real estate syndication is basically buying an investment property and splitting it up over multiple shares so that people can invest much smaller amounts. Because I think my first property sold for about $3 million. And we sold them in $50,000 share increments. So it's finding investors. So anytime you go out and find investors for the property, that's syndication.
Okay.
So through this process, we did syndicate that building, and it was great. And I started making money, and I started making consistent income, plus getting good pops at the end when it was time to sell. So I did deal after deal after deal, and then I started doing it as a lawyer and representing clients, helping them through the process. But I didn't really have the ability to help people through the actual like systems for doing real estate syndication. So that's why I started Altitude Syndication Founders Club, where we now provide everything that they need in order to get them to go from being primarily real estate agent, but any kind of real estate professional or really anyone, to being syndicators. So basically having an investment firm where they're doing this for themselves. And it's a step-by-step approach, and it's been really fulfilling.
Well, sounds familiar. I'm a recovering real estate-aholic, as we've talked about. But as always, gotta go get a little sip of real estate here and there. But anyway, so tell us a little bit more about your program. Who would this? Well, I guess we're putting the cart before the horse. I think this is the solution point, and so why don't you tell me the problem that you're addressing, and then I'll let you give us the solution.
Sure. So there's really two problems that get addressed by the same solution. So the first problem is for the clients that we have and the club members that we have. And so that's the problem of taking them out of living their own deal-to-deal lifestyles, and basically making their clients, the people their buyers and sellers that they represent, instead of making them money, now they're making themselves money, and they get benefit by making investors money as well. So everybody wins. The other problem that it solves is to buy a $3 million property, it takes $3 million, right? And so, but a lot of people want exposure into real estate, and they don't really have a mechanism to do that unless they've got $3 million to put it in. And so this is a great mechanism for investors in order to be able to invest money into various real estate projects, make that part of their portfolio, and also they can since they're smaller pieces, they can invest in multiple projects all over the country, different property types, and things like that.
Okay. So is this like, let's say, like one of the things that I've done is you do a limited partnership, you get a few guys together, put in some money. Is there ever any financing as part of the syndication, or are the syndications all, investor money?
It is, there's almost always financing. Most of the time, it adds some complexity, obviously, to do that, but most of the time, probably about 80% of the deals I do have some sort of loan on it.
Right.
It just decreases the amount of that there is, and it increases the amount of the return to the investor if you do it right. So there is almost always financing, and yes, it is similar to limited partnership. When you're splitting things up and pushing it out basically to the public, to the investing world, in order to invest, at that point, it really becomes a security. Right. And so that's the main kind of difference between what we're doing and what that limited partnership type thing.
Okay. So do you have to have a one of these series licenses to be able to do the syndication, or does it fall under some exemption? And I don't mean to get all lawyerly on you, but I'm just curious on
all good. So no, you do not. You actually don't want a series 7 or a series 6 license. Okay. If you do, you're held to a higher standard, because as a series 7 or a series 6 person, you're also supposed to make sure that the investment itself is suitable for whoever's buying it. So it kind of exposes you a little bit more. So you're actually the syndicator in this role. And so you're the originator of it and you're the creator of it. And there's no license required for you to do that. So it falls under the SEC rules. There's actually 3 regulations it falls under. It falls under primarily Regulation D. And there's a couple different of those exceptions to having it be under SEC scrutiny, or sometimes it goes under Regulation CF or Regulation A.
So, but do you have to have is there any specific license that you do have to have? I know you're an attorney and I think you're also a real estate broker. So
I am, but there's no need to. And actually there's no need to actually, you can still take, in my opinion, you can still take a brokerage commission for the purchase of the property that you're syndicating without a broker's license, and you can still make a commission based on the sale of it on the behalf of the sales side, because you're basically selling it for yourself. You're selling it as part of the entity. And so you can take a commission even without a broker's license in this scenario.
Okay, good. So for these people who are living deal to deal, how does your solution, how does syndication help get them out of that deal to deal situation?
Well, we've put together like a list of about 7 different ways to make fees off of syndicating a deal. So it can be as simple as your brokerage fee, or things like that. But it can also be things like you may decide as part of your deal to become the property's property manager. And so you're making regular, consistent income off of that. Almost every one of our people would decide that they are have some level of what we call asset management. So basically communicating with the investors, making sure that the overall investment stays together and is being run properly. And there's a consistent fee out of that. Typically people get paid monthly out of that.
Okay. And so if somebody wanted to somebody decides, hey, I want to do this syndication thing, it sounds cool. How would they get started? I mean, obviously you and I are big believers in having coaches and having consultants that help us, get through the weeds and cut straight through the best path. How does your system help people, or who would be the ideal person to become a syndicator?
So most of the people are going to have a real estate background. It would be probably too challenging without a background in real estate in order to take on the role of being a syndicator.
Okay.
Now, they could take on the role of being part of a team to do it, which if they didn't have that background, or they could certainly go in and just start investing in syndications as well. But really, it's the program itself is put together mostly for the real estate professionals, and it's different, and I think considerably better than the competitors that we have out there, because most of them are not lawyers, and most of them are not. There's a lot of shady goings on in the industry. There's too many get rich quick schemes, because this isn't a get rich quick scheme at all. It's not quick, and you're going to make money. You're going to make a lot of money, but it's not quick and it's not easy. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
And that's true about just about anything. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel like there's that perception that when you become a lawyer, you become a doctor, everybody thinks, oh, and you get $1 million to get started on your career. Yeah, that would be nice. But that's one of the things that I think is misunderstanding. Tell me a little bit more about how this solution helps real estate professionals.
So it flattens out their income to make it so that they have that regular recurring income. But one other thing well, there's two other things that I think are the big benefit. Um, it changes the perception of who that real estate agent is in the community, because they're suddenly go from being seen as kind of like an expense on a buyer and seller's bottom line, right? So when you sell a house, you look at that closing statement at the end of the day, when the house is sold and you see that you just paid 6% or 5% of your money out to these real estate agents, and your first thought is probably they didn't really do that much for it.
Yeah.
And so real estate agents have in the public a perception of not being the most, I want to be a real estate agent kind of thing when I grow up.
Right.
It's a good path to making money, but it doesn't have the respect that a lot of people have. And this turns that completely upside down, because now suddenly you're the buyer or the seller of real estate. And so you're making deals happen, and you're suddenly adding value into the pot instead of just taking that money away. And so, your phone calls start getting returned right away because the other brokers want to make sure that you close your transaction. You're suddenly seen as a money maker rather than just an expense. The
Right.
other thing that it does that changes everything is our people. I mean, we chose the name Altitude Syndication Founders Club because that idea of being a founder is really important to me. And it's that entrepreneurial spirit. It's that absolute creation of something that not only is about you, but it's about, building a legacy for yourself, but also for all of your investors. I mean, for those investors you're making them money, and which is awesome. And so suddenly you're the great guy, who's like, yeah, this guy made me 30% of my money.
Yeah.
That's real respect. And so the self-image that these people get as well is quite different.
Yeah. So that kind of takes me back to, being a recovering real estate-aholic, and having written the book, The Roadmap to Rich. It's about real estate investing. And I get young, and I say young, I mean new realtors come in, real estate agents come in and say, hey, I'm going to start this. What advice can you give me? And, I always say, what you want to do is find investors and get to know what property they're looking for, and then go look for the type of properties that these investors look for, and then you match them up, and I don't know how many actually listen to me, but it sounds similar to what you're talking about, except yours is kind of a little more formalized, structured system, and mine was just a well put together relationship, which is great. But I think you take it another step forward, to another step forward where it's not just connecting people, but you're connecting people in a more formal, systematized way that maybe lays out certain ground rules as to how
Mhm.
the syndicator is kind of quarterbacking the deal and isn't just one of the water boys. Now you're
Right.
part of you're part of the deal. You're not just bringing a deal.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that every REIT, so real estate investment trust, that's publicly listed, every private equity firm, every one of those things out there, they started with just one, basically, syndication.
Mhm.
It's the exact same tool that your Blackstone uses that we use. It's identical. It's the same tool, and it's it's the possibilities of growth are really limitless. And matching up that, we call it the founder investment theory, that you have going in, and then finding investors that match it is where it's at.
And so well, let me ask you another question, just from some of my experience with other projects that were like private placement type investments. Is there requirements for these investors to be qualified investors, or is this open to anybody?
Oftentimes, yes. Most of the time, I encourage our people to do it through to make it only available to accredited investors, because it makes the liability easier, and it's less regulated. There are definitely ways to do it without having accredited investors. And it either comes down to having a very direct relationship with them already, or making sure that the trading that review of the material from the investor themselves, who's unaccredited, to the SEC in the case of like a Reg A offering, or making it so that like a specific kind of website is available, like through a regulation crowdfunding.
Right.
Those are kind of the two big ways to push it off,
Right.
if you don't have that relationship that's already established.
Yeah, and I guess another reason to have an accredited investor is they're big boys. And I don't mean to be gender specific, but I've been involved in transactions, because not all of them are going to be home runs. And I've been involved in transactions where things went terribly wrong and basically everybody lost their money. And surprisingly, nobody complained about losing money. They complained that the project, wound up not working out, but nobody was like, well, how are you going to get back my money? Or, everybody was a big boy about it. And again, don't mean to put gender into it, but, when you're an accredited investor, you're investing money that you have put aside for different risk levels.
Right.
So if this was a high risk investment, you knew that if it hit, you're gonna really hit, and if it failed, you knew it was gonna be gone. And so accredited investors tend to kind of look at money in a very cold way, and they don't get emotional about it. Just like if everything had gone through the roof, yes, we'll toast some champagne, but then it's like, all right, now what are we going to do with this money to get the next deal?
Right.
So I
And
think
that's why the SEC did that. That's why that rule's there, is because nobody wants the person who's, making $30,000 a year to lose everything on something that was very speculative. Nobody wants that. The SEC doesn't want. That's why it set up that rule. And you don't want that as a syndicator, because you don't want to.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure if somebody's putting their rent money into this deal. It's not. I mean, it's not worth getting them into the deal if that's what they're risking.
Absolutely.
So Tilden, if somebody's interested in starting syndication, how can they get educated? What would you recommend as far as education? I know you have a program. How would somebody be able to sign up for your program? Because I imagine your program kind of would teach them and help them create their systems.
Yeah, we see ourselves as kind of like the non-equity team member. So we don't get a percentage of the deal. All we do is, all I care about is that I make everyone successful, but I'm making my money off of the fees of membership, not off of deal to deal.
Right.
And then ultimately they would just go to our website and they could see there's a few webinars that are there, and they can peruse those and see if it resonates. And if it does, great, then we have a conversation. If it doesn't, then well, hopefully it was interesting.
Okay. What you want to give us a website, and then we'll go ahead and also put it into the show notes.
So it's altitude-syndication.com is our website.
Okay. So altitude-syndication.com. All right. So if you're interested in learning about syndication, and I can vouch for Tilden. He does know what he's talking about. As you can tell, it very comfortably just rolls off the tongue. This is what it is. This is what you do, and then so I can see that you've got that going, and Tilden really does have the heart of a teacher. He does want to make sure you understand, and he's a big giver. So that's also a really important part of any kind of business investment. So I don't want to abuse your time. So why don't you tell me, as you know, we always try to provide a core value for our listeners and viewers, because there are all kinds of interesting takes on core values, and we all use a core value whether we think about it or not to make a decision in our life, our business, or legal issues. And it's always interesting to hear our different guests and what their core values are. Why don't you share one of your core values with us?
So my core value is action. So by that, I mean, it is better to do something, make a decision and do something than to, and have it be slightly wrong, than to not do anything at all.
Yeah, well, that's a really good core value from to just kind of plus one on that. If you don't take action, you've also made a decision.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of times people don't think about, that not doing something is a decision. And most of the time, we don't move out of fear, and we see plenty of roadkill that's how they got there. Is
Yep.
Fear paralyzes you, stop moving, you're going to get run over. And whether you ran to one side or the other and you wound up in a ditch, at least you didn't wind up as a splat on the road. So it's, taking action is important, which reminds me of Rich's saying, action kills fear.
Absolutely.
And I think he's got that trademark. So hopefully I don't get a nasty.
No, he doesn't actually. Because I spoke about it on my last coaching call, that exact thing. So no, it actually comes from Dale Carnegie. So I believe. Well, Dale Carnegie said almost exactly the same thing, though he may not have said in those 3 words. So.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely, I see that taking action is a good core value to have. You've taken action in creating the Altitude Syndication Founders Club. You take action in your law practice, and so you and I get to see each other every week. So I do see the action behind your words and in your practice. So Tilden, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely.
And we'll put your contact information. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to get a hold of you, is there someplace specific you would like them to go?
Yeah, I mean, the website, they can always give us a call at 818-350-5424, or send us an email at info@Moschetti, sorry, that's my law group, info@altitude-syndication.com.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and also put that information in the show notes. And if you liked what you heard today, go ahead and click subscribe below. Click the little bell to make sure that you get notified as these videos get posted. If you're listening on a podcast catcher, go ahead and subscribe and hit like so that we can get more viewers and listeners and get more people to have solutions. So until next time, this is the Solution Point, solutions for your life, your business, and the law. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.